You cannot. Pep Guardiola opens up on John Stones' anger for breaking Man City rule. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola spoke about what he expects from his players on international duty. Pep Guardiola said he has never been as angry as when John Stones injured himself in an England friendly last season, after learning of an injury Kyle Walker has recently picked up with the national team. Stones had started the last 4 league games leading up to March 2024, but picked up a groin injury in a friendly with Belgium. That forced him out of league games with Arsenal and Aston Villa, and while he did return to play in the Champions League first leg against Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, a setback in that game meant he could only manage 11 minutes of the second leg. City centre-back recently brought up Guardiola's reaction to it, and the manager remains furious about the incident itself and the lack of communication around it. As well as swiping at former England boss Gareth Southgate, Guardiola said there could be no excuses for a player getting injured in a friendly for their national team when the club pay their wages. I was never so angry as that moment. Never ever before. I was so disappointed, he said. It was a friendly game and we are playing the quarter-finals against Real Madrid and to win the Premier League. For a friendly game, 2 players coming back injured, I didn't like it, at all. Before, when I was a player, the national team manager calls the clubs, now nobody talks. How they feel, how they are. Maybe the physios talk, but the managers never. In the first or second season with Gareth, yes, but now no. Sometimes Ronald Koeman, because he is a friend of mine. I know the players don't want to get injured, I always encourage them to go to the national team, it's a pleasure, but if it's a friendly game you cannot come back injured. I'm sorry. If you are focused, if it is a friendly game you cannot come back injured when you are playing the quarter-finals of the Champions League, because they put in a lot of work behind the scenes. They are the first to make a lot of work to arrive in the last stages of the season with a chance to win the titles. We are well paid here, the club pay us, not the national teams. Sometimes you have to respect the clubs. In friendly games you cannot be injured. You can play, absolutely, but you cannot come back injured. Walker played 90 minutes against Finland in the international break but returned to Manchester with a knee problem and is not expected to be available against Sparta Prague, having already missed the trip to Wolves. Pep Guardiola makes Josko Gvardiol admission as Man City injuries bite. Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola spoke about injuries in his squad as he plots a course through many competitions. Pep Guardiola believes the fitness of his squad will determine their chances of success this season. City's manager is currently without 4 of his first-team stars, with 2 long-term injuries and 2 others in Kevin De Bruyne and Kyle Walker that he hopes to be back soon. Nathan Ake returned to the squad at Wolves for the first time since August, and Guardiola is counting on his players staying fit if they to achieve what they want to. Josko Gvardiol has started 6 of the last 7 games at left-back, but his manager says it is unsustainable to think he will be able to play 2 games a week for the rest of the season. As much as City will need to maintain their level over the course of the campaign, Guardiola is more concerned about their avoiding injury. Josko cannot play every 3 days, we need Nathan. Otherwise, we cannot compete until the end, he said. The most important thing is not training sessions, it is being fit. If you are injured you lose 8 games. Muscular, not the injuries to Oscar, Bob, or Rodri. No injuries is the only reason why you can stay until the end of the season. That's why the doctors, the medical department, the physios, the intensity you have to be so careful because of all the travel and national teams and games every 3 days. Man City handed concerning injury update on Kevin De Bruyne and Kyle Walker. Pep Guardiola spoke about the fitness of Kevin De Bruyne and Kyle Walker ahead of their Champions League game with Sparta. Pep Guardiola is unable to say when Kevin De Bruyne will return 5 weeks on from an injury that was described as minor. De Bruyne came off with a thigh problem in the Champions League draw with Inter, although Guardiola played down the extent of the issue. However, a return after the October international break has still not materialized, and while the player is back in training with the Blues, he is still expected to be involved against Sparta Prague on Wednesday. That will be the 7th straight game the 33-year-old has missed this season after a promising start to the campaign. Guardiola still does not think it is a big problem but needs his playmaker to be completely ready before he returns. It's not a big issue, but he doesn't feel completely fine and Kevin is not 22 years old anymore, he said. He has to be fit completely for his football. He has to be completely comfortable or he cannot express his potential. He is training a little bit better. He said to me he still doesn't feel good, so take your time. He has to be 100% ready. Guardiola could not share any positive news on Kyle Walker either after the defender returned from England duty with a knee problem. He was unable to make the trip to Wolves on Sunday and is also said to be ruled out of the Champions League match. Man City add 4 youngsters to squad for Champions League tie. Manchester City take on Sparta Prague in the Champions League on Wednesday night. Manchester City called on for academy players to help prepare for their Champions League tie with Sparta Prague. 4 academy players were involved in the session in addition to Jacob Wright and Nico O'Reilly, who are training regularly with the first team this season. Defenders Emilio Lawrence and Seb Naylor, and forwards Jadon Heskey and Farid Alfarouprecht joined Guardiola. Wright and O'Reilly may be expected to lead the charge for the under-19s on Wednesday afternoon as they look to make progress in the UEFA Youth League. City were beaten 4-2 by Inter Milan in their opening fixture but bounced back with a 4-0 win at Slovan Bratislava. The Blues are determined to make an impact in the competition this season. City's first team trained in the autumn sun on Tuesday afternoon with the first 15 minutes open to the media. City legend Mike Summerby was pitchside to watch training and was greeted by Erling Haaland and Guardiola as they came out. Summerby was with sporting director Txiki Begiristain, who it has recently been announced will leave at the end of the season after 12 years in Manchester. He will be replaced by Hugo Viana, who is joining from Sporting Lisbon, an opponent for City in this season's Champions League. Jeremy Doku and Jack Grealish injury worry as Man City train without several players. Manchester City opened the first 15 minutes of their training session to the media ahead of their Champions League game. Jeremy Doku and Jack Grealish were not present in training ahead of Manchester City's Champions League game to give Pep Guardiola another injury worry. Kyle Walker is nursing a knee problem that he picked up on England duty and did not participate in the group session to prepare for Wednesday's game with Sparta Prague. There was no sign of Grealish or Doku either in the first 15 minutes of training open to media, raising concerns that they could also miss the game. Kevin De Bruyne was training as he recovers from a thigh injury that has kept him out for 5 weeks, although Pep Guardiola indicated on Tuesday that he doesn't expect the player to be fit to play yet and was unable to give a timeframe for his return. The Belgian returned to training last week but is cautious of coming back before he is 100%. It's not a big issue, but he doesn't feel completely fine and Kevin is not 22 years old anymore, said Guardiola on De Bruyne in his pre-match press conference. He has to be fit completely for his football. He has to be completely comfortable or he cannot express his potential. He is training a little bit better. He said to me he still doesn't feel good, so take your time. He has to be 100% ready. On when Walker might return, the manager said, "I don't know."